Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel, Make Believe Storytime. My name is Beatrice, and today's video is part of our series of inspirational interviews dedicated to pre-teens and teens called What Do You Want to Be When You Grow Up? Through these interviews, we want to offer you an interesting way of learning about different jobs and career paths, some of them more traditional, some of them less so. In our previous episode, I spoke to writer, curator and university professor Catalina Florescu about what it's like working in literature and theatre in New York. We also spoke about what it's like having multiple career paths and why that can be exciting rather than scary. If any of the above are of interest to you, then please do check out that video as well. You can find it at the link in the description box below. In today's episode, we are moving away from the creative industries and into the world of spirituality and community work. Many people know the reality of their faith and the presence of God in their lives. People like the Revd Jess McLaren guide and support us to know God better, and in this interview we get a flavour of what she does day by day to make that happen. Revd Jess is a vicar in the Church of St Thomas of Canterbury in Wilbury, Letchworth in Herefordshire, and I am extremely grateful that I get to find out more about being a vicar from her. Hi Jess, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your time so generously with us. I'm really excited about today's chat. So I wanted to ask you firstly if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a vicar, which you can probably tell from the collar around my neck, though it's not massively, what would be the word I'd use? Not everyone knows what this is, but basically it means that I'm a minister in the Church of England. It means that I'm a Christian, and it means that I'm a leader of a church. So I lead a beautiful church called St Thomas's of Canterbury, and that's in a place called Wilbury in Letchworth in Hertfordshire. Basically from day to day, I run this church community, and that includes our services, but also a huge outreach to our community, schools, older people, different groups. We rent out our spaces, we have toddler groups, all sorts of things going on, just trying really to share the love of God with those around us and those that want to come and join us for services.
Wonderful. And that sounds like such a purpose-filled vocation, I think, and job. I think
Yeah,
not many people
absolutely.
say, that their everyday job is so full of purpose, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this yesterday and just thinking that I often feel like the luckiest person in the world because I get to do what I love. And it's just, I think I've got the best job in the world, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to also say that I find it extremely inspiring that you've chosen to become a vicar as a woman. As I've said to you before, I come from a Christian Orthodox background where women are not allowed to be priests. They're not even allowed to enter the altar, to be fair. So, let alone be allowed to actually, serve in the church
Yeah.
in that way. So for me, it's extremely inspiring, and I've only had the chance to meet two female vicars so far. You'd be the third, and so I wondered, based on that, if you could tell us a little bit about what brought you onto this path.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to say I'm the first female vicar here at St Thomas's. So all their previous priests have been men. I can't give more thanks to the women that have gone before me and made this possible in the Church of England. So there was a huge amount of campaigning that went on to make the way for women to be priests in the Church of England. And I know that that's currently not possible in all other denominations, the Orthodox Church included. So what brought me on this path? Well, if someone had told me when I was a child that I would be a vicar, I would have just laughed in their face. And when I always think when I was at Sunday school, because I did grow up in the church as a child and I went to Sunday school with my siblings most Sundays. And I always think if my teachers at the time, my Sunday school teachers at the time were asked, pick out the children here who you think might be vicars one day, I don't think they would have chosen me. But I believe in a God that's full of surprises. And so it's still a surprise to me that I am a vicar. Um, but what brought me on this path? Well, as a young person, I wasn't really very clear on what I wanted to do when I was older. I went to university and I did a degree in tourism. And then I kind of came out of university, no money in the bank, and thought, I just have to get a job. And that took me on a journey of working for big offices and in great teams. And I had a really great time and really enjoyed what I was doing. But there was just this niggle in the back of my mind all the time, thinking, I'm not quite sure this is what I'm here for. And I wanted to do something that helped other people and gave me a better sense of satisfaction, that I wasn't just making a company richer, but that my life was doing something to help others. I guess I've always had that compassion in me, that I wanted to do something that made a difference. And I'm sure there's many people that will be listening to this thinking, yeah, I want to do something that makes a difference. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm meant to be a teacher. And I remember going into a school for 2 days. I made 2 days, and there's no way I could ever be a teacher. And I take my hat off to every teacher out there. My twin sister's actually a teacher, and she's an amazing teacher. But it takes certain gifts and certain talents to teach. And I became a Christian 10 years ago. It was a massive change in my life. As I said, I grew up in the church, but actually it wasn't until I was an adult that I really understood what that meant for me. And I made a commitment then to God to say that I would do whatever he called me to do. And to my surprise, that led to a sense that I was being called to be a priest. And I thought it was bonkers. I've got to be honest. I never, ever would have expected God to call me to be a priest. And at the time, I couldn't even read without my knees smacking together because I was so nervous in church. But I've come on a journey. I've gone to college, I've studied, I've been under the supervision of other people, and here I am today. And so if you ever, I think anyone listening, if you ever think that you haven't got what it takes to do something, well, that's what I thought. And actually, life is a journey, and you never set out on something fully equipped to be able to do it. And that's why we train and we go and we study or we get experience. And that's what's made me who I am now, which is amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. That's I was just going to say, I'm so much more, not that I wasn't grateful, but I'm even more grateful now that you said that you were so nervous to speak publicly in church. I am so much more grateful now that you agreed to do this, because I know, that it was probably a big thing to overcome. I mean, speaking in public in any setting can be daunting, especially where
Absolutely.
you feel that you're leading a community, and you've got that responsibility. I can only imagine that it can be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, extremely grateful. You've got such an interesting story. I wasn't sure whether you'd started early on this path or not, but I think it's so nice that you share that with us. And I think it really does show that, we don't always know where life's gonna lead us. And it's really interesting that that's actually something that's come up in every interview I've done for this series so far. Both
Right.
of the ladies I've spoken to are from a sort of creative artistic background. They've both said the same thing.
Mm.
You cannot expect young people at a very young age, 14, 15, 16, 17, to start making massive decisions about their future, um, because it's impossible. And here, you, as the other ladies as well, you are a testament of that. That life has taken you in a completely different direction, which you would have never expected, maybe when you were young or a child, as you said. So I think that's incredible, that there's something that's kind of like a reoccurring motif in these interviews. And it's extraordinary. And so I was wondering, what would you say, in your opinion, are the most important attributes for someone to have, if they're considering becoming a vicar?
I think really I can't do this. I can't do this in my own strength, and that might sound strange, but actually, I think any leader in any capacity has to have the humility to know that they can't do it all themselves.
Mm.
Um, and so I think humility is a massive attribute of leaders, but it's also something that Christians are called to have, humility. So I think that's number one. I think number two are probably boundaries. And again, I would say that again for any capacity in any job. You don't want to work your whole life and never have the balance of a work-life balance. You know, it's really important that you have your own hobbies, that you have your own interests, that you socialise, that you have fun in what you do. I know there's been times in my life where I've done jobs where I have not been having fun and I haven't enjoyed what I've done, and I just couldn't imagine that being my life, you know, going on. I think really to be a vicar, to do what I'm doing, compassion is key. We are here to love and serve the needs of our community, and so having a heart for the people around you, not being judgmental about people's circumstances, and really therefore just meeting them as they are and taking them as they are, and seeking to help them is really important. I think the other thing is faith. I can't, you know, as a Christian and as a Christian leader, my faith is absolutely paramount to everything that I do. And I believe that God gives me the strength to fulfill this calling, this role as a priest in his church. And then the other thing I think we could all say about this last year, with everything that's been going on in the world, is hope. You know, we all need hope, and it's so difficult right now, and it's relentless, and we all must be wondering, when are we going to get outside again, and when are we going to be able to see our friends and go to the cinema? I don't think I'll ever take the cinema for granted again. But hope, and that is one of the fundamentals of the Christian faith, that we have hope. And so, yeah, for me, having hope in the God that I believe in is absolutely key.
That's really interesting, and it's so nice that those are also, I mean, they can be universal attributes as well for any leader. I think if
Yeah.
we think beyond you know, faith or religion, at least in my opinion, that all leaders have these sort of attributes. So
Yeah.
um so yeah, that's really really interesting.
One other thing that I would say, actually, that's just come to mind, is that Jesus was servant-hearted. He would do anything for anyone, and I always think that I'm never too good to do the photocopying. I'm never too good to go and clean a toilet. I'm never too good. I mean, I remember here a drain got blocked, and I was in there getting all this dirt and gunge out of this drain to clear it. And I think that's a really important part of just life, that we're never too good to do anything, and that we'll always serve other people. I think it's a really good thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you look at it in that way, some of the pressure of life, I think, disappears as well. Some of the pressure on yourself too, because if you are willing to do all of those things, and like you said, we're never too good for those things, we have that humility and that understanding that actually we're no better than someone who's suffering, or someone on the street, or someone in need, or someone in a horrible situation. And we understand that, one, we don't have to put pressure on ourselves to be this whatever something society expects us to be, and two,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to judge anyone either,
Mm-hmm.
because you know we're always trying to to level ourselves
Yeah.
to do everything in that way, not to kind of be picky about the things we do, because we are above those things.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way you put that across. And now I was thinking, because you know I said earlier about being a female vicar, so I wondered if there are any aspects of the job that you should be aware of as a woman before becoming a vicar.
Yeah, I think there are a few. I think whatever's happened over the last 25 years, for example, since women were allowed to be ordained in the Church of England, there's still issues. There are still moments where I don't feel like my voice is heard because I'm female. And I struggle with that. It's difficult. And there are still churches that won't accept a female priest. They don't want a female. and that, you know, that is ongoing, and that's something that I had to kind of reflect upon and appreciate before coming into this. There is also parts of the Christian church that feel very strongly still that women should not be ordained. But do you know, I'm not a person that seeks conflict or argument. I want to respect Christians that have different beliefs to me, and I think that's really important. And we do that not just with Christians, but with other faiths. That we respect people's different views. I am never ever going to be able to pin down the Bible and everything that's written in it and absolutely know what it is that God hopes for and wants for us. Because, quite frankly, when you read it, different parts contradict other parts, but also God is God and I'm not. So I, you know, I just really hold to that. Like, I have a friend that feels really strongly that I shouldn't be a vicar because he doesn't think women should be leaders in the church. But we are great friends. And I think that's really important, that we can still be friends, that we can still respect and love one another, despite the differences that we have. So, yes, there are difficulties. Yes, it has taken quite a lot of reflection to get to this point. But I just push on, knowing that it's been far harder for women that have gone before me, and that actually I am the one that really reaps from their legacy and all the hard work that they did and all the campaigning that they did to make this possible. So, yeah, most of the time I'm blessed. Most of the time people are wonderful to me, but there are still some times where it's, you know, it's difficult. And I still, quite often, if I'm in the supermarket and someone sees me, they'll go, because some people still find it incredibly strange that a woman would have one of these on, you know? They still, I think they've missed something. Obviously, they've never watched The Vicar of Dibley, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. It's how you look at it, and it's you know, being aware of it, but maybe not letting it kind of put too much pressure on you. And then
Yeah,
as well, like you said, whenever I think any sort of new movement, if we can call it that, in any walk of life, um, it's always important, I think, for us to kind of look back at who came before us, like you said, and think, okay, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here.
oh man, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing as well is that no one can take your experience away from you. So people can say that I shouldn't be a vicar, for example, but they can't take my experience away from me. And I, I feel quite strongly that I am doing what God has called me to do. This is how God wants me to serve in His church, and that's what I hold on to. But like I said, I won't argue with people about it. That's not. I just don't think it's a good way to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was wondering if you would be able to sum up for us what would be a typical day in the life of a vicar.
Wow, I mean, that's all gone a bit upside down during this virus and this
Yeah.
last 10, 11 months. But I mean, a typical day for me generally starts in prayer, just really making sure that, you know, I've prayed for the things at the beginning of the day. There might be things coming up in my diary. There might be people that are sick that need prayer. Really, you know, whatever is going on around me, but also it's just my time. For myself to really pray with and to spend time with God. And then from there, it can be an array of things, but people are the most important part of what I do. And I don't want to be stuck behind a desk all day long and you know, typing away. But there is a lot of that too, because there's a lot of things to arrange. There's services to prepare for. We have a short talk on a Sunday, and that needs to be prepared. There's rotas to write, all sorts. It's so varied. So if anyone's ever told you that vicars just work on Sundays, it's not true. It's really not true. But I guess I always try and make sure in my week that there are, at the moment, I do it through walking with people. I've got a small dog, and I just make sure, like every day, pretty much, I walk with someone different at a sociable distance. So really, there is no typical day. You never know what's coming. You never really know what's going to happen from week to week. But there are always those staple things that need to be done. So preparing for a Sunday service, preparing for any other things in the week that need to be prepared for. You know, at the moment we're preparing a virtual guide around our church for a year one class in a local primary school. They'd normally come into the building, which would have been amazing, but they can't come in at the moment. So we're doing a video for them to take them around and show them all the different bits and pieces. So not typical, I'm afraid, just really, really varied, but amazing. Like, how amazing to never have 2 days that are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds so good. And I was actually wondering, this is another question that I hadn't written down. I hope you don't mind me asking, but is the church where you are vicar a local church to where you were born and raised, or is it somewhere that you've been assigned to? I don't really know how it works, so it's just a curiosity.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Well, I've moved 10 times in 10 years, I worked out the other day. So you have to be prepared to move quite a bit if you're going to follow this, and if you were thinking that you might be a vicar one day. And that's not just because of that, it's for various reasons. But so I'm currently in Hertfordshire, but I'm actually from West London, from a place near Twickenham. And that's where a lot of my family are. And and then when I went to college, I moved to Nottingham for a year, and then I moved to Durham for 2 years, and then I went from Durham and I lived in Luton for 3 years, and now I'm in Hertfordshire. So I'm about an hour and 15 minutes away from where I grew up, which is nice. It's, I can get there in a day, but obviously I'm not driving anywhere at the moment.
At the moment, yeah. Very, very interesting. So I'm guessing, you go with the job wherever the job calls you.
Yeah. Actually, in answer to your question, I'm not assigned anywhere. I didn't have to come here. Again, the Church of England have quite a normal recruitment process. So they have a thing called the Church Times, but they also have a website, and you can go on and you can look at the different jobs that are available across the country. And if you want to apply for them, you apply for them. And if you get shortlisted, you interview. So it's a very normal process. And then there's lots of people involved in the interview process. And then they discern whether you're the right person for the job.
For the job, yeah, that makes sense. I thought it was more like a system where it's where there is a parish that is available that then you are assigned to it, which is, I think, my experience from my home country, Romania, and church there. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, and the Catholics work like that, and I believe that the Methodists work like that. So I guess different, we call them denominations, don't we? Different denominations of the Christian church work in different ways.
Different ways, absolutely. Yeah. Interesting. So there's no typical day in the life of a vicar, and it can take you anywhere around the country, and that sounds very exciting, actually, or all over the world, for that matter.
All the world. Yeah, all the world. There are amazing opportunities in the church to just go and mission. We call it mission. So I've been to Uganda twice to help children that unfortunately have been orphaned and have needed accommodation and classrooms in their villages, and it's just amazing. I mean, I could not have imagined 10 years ago where this journey would take me and the opportunities that it would give me. So it's phenomenal.
I think sounds a lot less boring than people think it is. I know we've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask the question anyways, just in case something else comes up. I was wondering, aside from obviously the regular service you do in church, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of your position as a vicar?
I think for me, it's always about us getting beyond our walls. So, people come to services, but it's not, the service is important, but the service really for me is about feeding us and nourishing us to go out. And that is absolutely what God's command is, that we are to go out and love the world and to love our community. So the things that will always give me life are things that benefit the community. So, for example, on Christmas Eve, we got a great lawn outside the front of our church, a grass area, And this area is really good at intercepting food so that it doesn't go to waste. So we have a cafe in town called Best Before, and so there was so much surplus food that the supermarkets would have been throwing in the bin on Christmas Eve that our lawn out the front was just literally covered in crates of food, flowers, vegetables, bread, everything, everything. I even took a packet of Yum Yums. It was great. And so for me, it's just about the things that will give me life are the things that are just I guess reach more people, and show them that it's not just about what happens here on a Sunday morning. That's just only a fraction of what we're here for. Really, our job as the church is to transform our community, that there should be no one in our community that is missed out or forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's made me think of a story that I heard of a church. I don't remember where in the UK, but I read an article that was talking about a vicar who was opening the doors of the church to all the homeless people around the area. So some of the homeless people who, were comfortable enough, I guess, or wanted to, were able to come and sleep in the church every night. And in the morning, there would be some coffee and tea and probably some breakfast that the vicar would arrange with the support of the community. And I thought that was extraordinary. And I think, that goes beyond what people think of the church, what the church is and represents. But like you said, I think if for anyone who comes from a Christian background, we all know that really that's what it should be about, going beyond the basic, which is important, but it should really go beyond. It's about the community and about serving people, irrespective of who they are, like you were saying at the beginning of our conversation, irrespective of their walk of life, their faith, their creed, whatever it is. It's about accepting them and taking them for who they are and helping them,
Yeah,
helping one
yeah.
another and loving one another irrespective of these things. And I think that's it's really reassuring to have a conversation with someone who makes this their life's purpose, and it's very, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Now, I think I've come to my last question, but if there is anything else that you'd like us to cover, we can do afterwards. But my final question is, what would you advise young people who may be thinking about pursuing a similar path to you, or who may be questioning whether or not to pursue such a path?
I think depending on what denomination you're from, so obviously I'm Church of England, there are amazing resources now for what we call young vocations. So historically, if you were a young person and you were to say to your vicar, I think I might be, interested in being a priest or a vicar one day. The likely answer you might have got was, you're too young, go and get some experience and then come back. But actually, the church doesn't respond like that anymore. If there are young people in our churches who have a sense that that might be what God is calling them to do, or they just want to explore it with no pressure, then we have something called Young Vocations. And every diocese across the country, a diocese is just an area of the UK, because obviously we do have to split somehow. There should be someone in that diocese who is responsible for young vocations. So it's great. You just will talk to your vicar or your church leader. They should be able to put you in contact with someone, and then you can just have, like I said, a no pressure conversation, because it just starts with talking about it. And there's lots of different resources that the Church of England have, as an example. So I went on a weekend away where I could just have some time to just explore different things and have different conversations. And I was at college training with people who, knew when they were 11, 12, 13. I think there was even someone there that knew when they were 8 that they were going to be a vicar one day. They really sensed that early on. So again, don't think you're too young, and don't think that someone's going to say, oh, don't be ridiculous, you shouldn't be thinking this way, because absolutely, God could tell you at any time in your life that he wants you to be a vicar in his church. So yeah, I hope, and my hope would be that your diocese would really look after you, and they would put you in touch with the right people and help you along that journey. And I would just say, talk to people. Don't keep, if you can, don't keep it to yourself. Just chat to people about it. It's always good to talk these things through.
Yeah, absolutely. That I'm so glad to hear that there is such a system in place for young people, that it makes it easier and more accessible, and like you said, less pressure, because I think that's also really important to have that freedom to explore, which again is the reoccurring theme in this series, which is, we should keep our doors open, our options open, until we figure out what it is that we actually want to do. And it may end up that somebody who's considering it thinks, okay, maybe it really isn't for me, but they should have the space to explore it and to figure it out without any sort of prejudice or pressure, or and I'm so glad that that's the case, and that there is a space for young people to do that. It's really inspiring. Jess, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the young people watching about this path in life that you're on, or anything at all that you'd like to share with the young people watching us?
I just think the last thing I would say is that I absolutely adore youth work. I've been a youth worker for the last 10 years, and that's a really important part of my role. I absolutely love hanging out with teenagers, and I love what I learn from them, and I love how fun you are, and you just remind us as adults often to stop being so serious and so boring. And so I do that through Christian youth camps, which I never went as a young person. And I think probably the first time I went, I was probably 28, 29. And not as a young person, obviously, I was there as a leader. And I had so much fun. My expectations weren't high, but I had such a great time, and I have been involved ever since. So I often do summer camps, I do October half-term camps, where we have up to 60 young people that come along from all different areas of the country. And so really what I'm saying to you is, if you're a young person and you have faith, or you're exploring and you might want to know more about the Christian faith, then Christian camps are a really good way where you can get together with other young people around your age, have loads of fun, but we also explore the Bible, but in good and fun ways. And it's, the camps that I do are just full of sport. We eat far too much. We have a ridiculous amount of fun and laughter. And I'm telling you, you'll come and you'll leave, and you will literally be waiting until you can come again. It's just fabulous. It's so good. And I've really missed it this last year, because obviously we've not been able to have them. But we have had virtual camps. I could give you a link, so that if there's a young person that's interested in following that up, then they can just go on the link, and they're camps that go on all across the country.
That's so wonderful. I just wanted to add on that note that actually I, as a teenager, when I was 15, I was given an extraordinary opportunity to travel to France, to a place called Tizé. I don't know if
yeah. I've never been, but this diocese, where I am, St Albans Diocese, love it.
Oh,
And they've wanted me to go, and I've not been yet.
I was going to say that I came from a background where that wasn't really a thing. Now it is. It's changing, and the church is sort of modernizing as well in Romania, but it wasn't really a thing. And I went there because of the trip that was attached to it, because obviously to go from Romania to France, it takes you a long time. So we had to stop along the way. And the fact that, you visit Europe was the thing that attracted me, less the church part. I have to be very honest. I was like, oh yeah, 3 prayers a day. I'll do it if I have to, like, whatever. But I was so impressed. And I think what impressed me the most, and what made me feel so welcome, was actually the diversity that was there. The fact that there were so many people there from all different Christian denominations. And it wasn't about who has the best way. It was about all coming together to celebrate love and loving one another and accepting one another and all of that. And I think it's an extraordinary lesson in acceptance, real acceptance, not just tolerance and love, that place in itself. And there were also people there, were young people there who weren't sure about their faith or weren't the most practicing Christians like myself, but were there and enjoyed each other's company and learnt from each other. And I've been actually a few times after that first time. I went once the following year, and I went as an adult as well for a couple of days with my boyfriend.
Wow.
And it's again, it's like when you say sometimes, you know, to people a Christian camp or whatever, they go, oh,
Yeah.
something straight, but it's nothing like that. So I can vouch for that. That's what I wanted to say.
Good.
That it was exactly like that. It was
I remember I went the first time and I came back, and my sister Kate's got twin girls, and I was 13 when they were born, so I'm quite a lot older than them. And but they were the perfect age to come. And so my sister was like, yeah, they'll go next year. And they really did not want to go. Their thought was, it's going to be geeks around a campfire, singing Kumbaya, you know, they just did not want to go. And she literally had to force them into the car. And they have been back every time.
there you go.
They loved it. They loved it. So I just think it's a great thing. I think young people are often, if you're in a church where you're one of very few young people, it's very, very hard to keep going. Whereas if you're part of these camps and you build a community with all these other young people, I just think it's a great way to keep connected.
Especially in nowadays, I think it's another lesson that, you know, we should try not to have prejudice about anything, you know, and just take it for what it is. And if we enjoy it, great, then go.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's really good. At least that was my lesson from the whole Tizé thing. And aside from the spiritual side of things, it helped me discover certain things for myself, which I think is incredible. I never got that at home, unfortunately. But aside from that, it was just that, you know, leave your prejudices at the door and try to see it for what it is, and don't see it through the lens of what you think it should be or it would be.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
That's really true.
This has been such a lovely chat. Thank you so much for this.
You're
and
welcome.
for time. I know time is the most valuable thing we can give to others, so I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you sharing all of your experience with us as well, and I really do hope that the young people watching can find a few takeaways from this and find it as inspiring as I have.
Absolutely, I hope so too. Thanks for asking me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And that was it, everyone. I hope there are a few points you can take away from today's video. And if you enjoyed it, remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and maybe even share this video with someone you think might also find it inspiring. And to keep up with our content, make sure to head over to our channel and hit that notification bell too. I'll see you next time.